The operation was set to begin in just 3 hours. The Pentagon conference room was thick with tension. $50 billion and thousands of American lives hung in the balance. Even the most experienced strategists couldn't find a solution. But the woman sitting quietly in the corner, she had noticed something different, and time was running out. In the heart of Washington, D.C., on the 5th floor of the Pentagon, Secure Conference Room 5A was hosting one of the most critical meetings in American military history. The room's walls were lined with thick steel and lead layers, completely isolated from the outside world. Fluorescent lights cast their white glow over the table, while electronic jamming devices operated silently. The names seated around the large oval table were the nation's most senior military leaders. General Victoria Blackwood, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was leading the meeting. At 60 years old, her gray hair pulled back tightly, her steel blue eyes filled with determination. Throughout her 30-year military career, she had never known defeat. Beside her sat Admiral Robert Sterling, the Navy's most experienced strategist. In his 50s, his weathered face bore the marks of countless naval expeditions. As he moved his finger across the maps on the table, he knew every geographical detail of the seas by heart. From the Air Force, General Marcus Thornfield was known as a technological warfare expert. At 45, an MIT graduate, both pilot and engineer. His tablet constantly displayed satellite data feeds. From the CIA, Deputy Director James Crawford was legendary in intelligence gathering. At 50, he had been running covert operations for 25 years. The fine lines on his face showed the weight of carrying thousands of classified secrets. And at the very end of the table, different from the others, Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez sat quietly. 28 years old, a West Point Military Academy graduate, but in these Pentagon meetings she was usually assigned to documentation and note-taking. Her dark brown hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her hazel eyes attentive and analytical. Low rank, the youngest person in the meeting, little experience. At least, that's what everyone in the room thought. General Blackwood slammed the table hard. The sound echoed through the room. "Gentlemen, Operation Thunderstrike has become a complete disaster. A $50 billion budget, 15,000 elite troops, and the credibility of our NATO allies are at risk." Admiral Sterling waved the thick intelligence report in his hand. It contained pages of satellite imagery, reconnaissance photos, and troop movement data. "Ma'am, our intelligence has turned out to be completely misleading. The positioning of enemy forces is completely different from what we reported. This operation, as it stands, would be a suicide mission." General Thornfield pointed to the large LED screen. Real-time satellite images were flashing on the screen. High-resolution imagery shows a hostile units are 3 times more than expected. We calculated only 2,000 personnel would be in the Al-Zahra region. In reality, there are 6,000 plus armed combatants. CIA's Crawford nodded gravely. Our human intelligence assets paint the same alarming picture. Ground sources confirm major troop concentration. If this operation is executed right now, we'll experience a far more catastrophic event than the Black Hawk Down incident in Somalia. The digital clock showed 14:30. The red LED numbers blinked threateningly. Operation Thunderstrike was set to launch at 1800 hours. Only 3.5 hours remained. Emma Rodriguez was looking intently at her military-grade tablet screen. For the past 72 hours, she had been studying every single detail related to this operation. Raw intelligence data, weather patterns, cultural information, historical precedents. She had cross-referenced everything. But no one was asking her. No one was curious about her opinion. She had no voice in this high-level strategic meeting. General Blackwood stood up and began pacing. "What are our options? We can't cancel the operation. How do we explain this to Congress, to the White House? The political ramifications would be devastating. "Ma'am," said Colonel Martinez, the operations planning specialist, "perhaps we could postpone the operation 48 to 72 hours. We could organize fresh reconnaissance missions and gather updated intelligence." "We don't have the luxury of 48 hours. General Thornfield slammed the table hard. Coffee cups jumped. "The diplomatic window is rapidly closing. Allied nations have started to become suspicious. If there are media leaks, our entire Middle East policy will collapse." Admiral Sterling spread weather charts across the table. "Meteorological conditions are also against us. Sandstorm season is approaching. Miss this window, the next opportunity won't be for 6 months." Crawford pulled photos from his classified folder. "Latest intel from our assets. The enemy is preparing a major offensive. If we don't strike first, they will. Preemptive action is critical." The room fell into heavy silence. Everyone was deep in thought. They were brainstorming alternative strategies, but couldn't find viable options. Faces were grim, the atmosphere tense. Emma Rodriguez was methodically reviewing the complex data sets on her tablet screen. Satellite feeds, timestamps, meteorological data, cultural calendars, historical patterns. She was systematically analyzing everything. Suddenly, she noticed an inconsistency. The correlation between timestamps in satellite imagery and cultural events. "Excuse me, sir." Emma's voice was so soft that no one heard. The high-level discussion continued. "Excuse me, sir." This time, the entire room turned to look at her. The conversation stopped abruptly. General Blackwood furrowed her eyebrows, clearly irritated. "Yes, Lieutenant?" Emma stood up. Her hands were trembling slightly, but her voice was steady and determined. "Ma'am, I believe there might be a significant error in our intelligence timeline analysis." A subtle murmur rose in the room. Admiral Sterling rolled his eyes dismissively. "Lieutenant, this is a high-level operational briefing, not a note-taking session. Know your place." But Emma persisted. She gathered courage. "Ma'am, I carefully examined the timestamp data in the satellite imagery. The alleged enemy troop buildup in the Al-Zahra region, these images were captured exactly 72 hours ago." General Blackwood paused. "So, what's your point, Lieutenant?" "Ma'am, 72 hours ago was the final day of Ramadan in the Islamic calendar. According to religious protocol, large military movements are strictly prohibited during this sacred period. It's a cultural taboo." CIA's Crawford leaned forward, showing slight interest. "Get to the specific point, Lieutenant. Time's running short." Emma confidently turned her tablet screen toward the table. "Ma'am, this massive troop concentration is actually an assembly for religious gathering, civilian congregation for Eid celebration preparation, not a military formation at all." The room suddenly fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. Emma maintained momentum, her voice gaining strength. "I conducted cross-reference analysis with meteorological data. 72 hours ago, there was a severe sandstorm weather event in the entire region. Visibility near zero. Atmospheric distortion at maximum level." General Thornfield stopped pacing. "Continue, Lieutenant." "Sir, satellite imaging was severely distorted due to the sandstorm. Large civilian vehicle convoys appeared like military supply convoys. Religious pilgrimage buses, family transportation, supply trucks for festival preparation, all were misidentified as military equipment." Emma showed detailed analysis on her tablet. "I studied traditional Islamic gathering patterns. Typical congregation size for Eid celebration, vehicle patterns, gathering duration. Everything Matches perfectly with the satellite data. Admiral Sterling was still skeptical. Lieutenant, are you seriously claiming that our entire multi-billion-dollar intelligence apparatus made a basic cultural miscalculation? Emma looked directly without flinching. Yes, sir. With utmost respect, sir. Cultural context is a critical component in intelligence analysis, but it was overlooked. General Blackwood slowly approached Emma. Show me the comprehensive data. Everything. Emma confidently placed her tablet in the center of the table. On the screen was an incredibly detailed analysis: satellite images, meteorological reports, cultural calendar correlations, timestamp analysis, historical pattern comparisons, regional demographic data, religious observance schedules. Every data point had been meticulously cross-referenced and verified. General Thornfield carefully scrutinized the data. Minutes passed in complete silence. My God, this is sophisticated analysis. She might be absolutely right. CIA's Crawford slowly nodded, clearly impressed. How did our entire intelligence community miss this obvious cultural correlation? Emma respectfully replied, Sir, because different intelligence streams were analyzed separately. Cultural intelligence, meteorological data, and satellite imagery were evaluated separately. No one conducted comprehensive cross-disciplinary analysis, and most importantly, no one asked the right cultural questions. General Blackwood stood up. The atmosphere in the room had dramatically shifted. She slowly approached Emma. Lieutenant Rodriguez, do you fully comprehend what you just accomplished? Emma maintained military bearing, a straight posture. Ma'am, I simply systematically analyzed the available data. No, Lieutenant. There was a tone of respect in General Blackwood's voice. You potentially just prevented a catastrophic military disaster, saved the lives of 15,000 American servicemen and women, assured the success of a $50 billion operation. Every senior officer in the room was giving focused attention to Emma. She was no longer the insignificant note-taker. She was no longer the ignored junior officer. She had earned respect through pure analytical excellence. Admiral Sterling stood up formally. Lieutenant, this level of analytical work demonstrates exceptional intelligence capability. I formally apologize for my dismissive attitude. General Thornfield nodded appreciatively. Ma'am, cross-disciplinary thinking is exactly what modern warfare requires. Outstanding work. Emma was still trembling slightly, but this time from excitement and adrenaline. Ma'am, I simply performed my sworn duty. General Blackwood smiled, a rare occurrence. Lieutenant, effective immediately. You're permanently reassigned to the Strategic Intelligence Division. Direct reporting structure to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Promotion to captain approved. Ma'am? And Lieutenant Rodriguez? General Blackwood's serious tone returned. In future meetings, when you observe critical inconsistencies, don't hesitate to interrupt. Your analytical voice just proved to be the most valuable asset in this room. The digital clock showed 15:15. Operation Thunderstrike could now proceed with full confidence, according to the original strategic plan, with accurate intelligence, calculated risk, and optimized success probability. And in the marble corridors of the Pentagon from that historic day forward, everyone would recognize Captain Emma Rodriguez, not as a silent junior officer, but as a life-saving analyst. Her analytical brilliance became legend. In the following weeks, Operation Thunderstrike was executed flawlessly. Minimal resistance encountered, strategic objectives achieved, 0 American casualties. The mission was classified as a complete success. An official commendation note was added to Emma Rodriguez's military record on that pivotal day. Exceptional analytical skills demonstrated under pressure. Outstanding cross-disciplinary thinking. Leadership potential evident. Fast-track career advancement recommended. She became a case study in the intelligence community. Military academies began teaching her methodology. Cultural intelligence and meteorological correlation analysis were integrated into standard protocol. But most importantly, no one in the Pentagon would underestimate an officer based on rank anymore. Junior officers' insights were valued and encouraged. Emma's office was now in the Strategic Intelligence Division, with a panoramic view of the Potomac River. On her walls hung commendation certificates, challenge coins, and a framed photo with General Blackwood. As her first major assignment, Emma developed a comprehensive reform program. Integrated Cultural Meteorological Intelligence Analysis Protocol. This protocol became a mandatory course in military intelligence training. Emma Rodriguez was later promoted to full colonel, the youngest female officer ever to achieve this position in the Strategic Intelligence Division. Her analytical methods were implemented in countless operations, saving countless lives. Power in the Pentagon should never be measured solely by rank. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in the courage to ask the right questions. And on that historic day, Emma Rodriguez not only asked the correct questions, she also provided accurate answers. Answers that saved a $50 billion operation. Answers that protected thousands of precious lives. And from then on, everyone in the Pentagon understood a fundamental truth. A quiet voice often carries the most powerful message. When cultural awareness, analytical excellence, and moral courage are combined, they can change history. Emma Rodriguez proved that day. In intelligence, it's not hierarchy that matters most, but insight. And sometimes the most junior officer in the room can make the most critical contribution. On that day, something profound shifted in the marble halls of the Pentagon. Not only was an operation saved, but an entire mindset was transformed. Senior leadership realized that wisdom can come from any rank. Insight can flourish at any age. Emma's courage and analytical brilliance shattered institutional barriers. The success story of Operation Thunderstrike became legend in Pentagon briefings. But the real legend was Emma Rodriguez's transformation, from invisible note-taker to respected strategic analyst. Her methodical approach, cultural sensitivity, and unwavering determination became an example for every military personnel. Emma's integrated analysis methodology was acknowledged as revolutionary in the intelligence community. Cross-disciplinary thinking, cultural correlation, meteorological impact assessment. These concepts were incorporated into standard protocol. Military academies added Emma's case study to their curricula, teaching future officers that when preparation meets opportunity, it creates history. Meeting culture in the Pentagon permanently evolved. Junior officers were now encouraged to contribute. Different perspectives were valued, and hierarchical rigidity transformed into flexibility. Emma's single moment of courage altered the entire institutional DNA. From that day forward, Conference Room 5A became a symbolic reminder in every meeting. Courage can come from anywhere. Wisdom has no uniform, and truth spoken at the right moment has the power to save lives. Her analytical brilliance became the benchmark against which other intelligence assessments were measured. Emma's story was whispered in corridors, discussed in break rooms, and referenced in classified briefings. She became living proof that American military strength lies not only in weapons and technology, but also in diverse perspectives and analytical minds. Her legacy was embedded into institutional memory. Most importantly, Emma Rodriguez proved that greatness lies not in the stars on a uniform, but in the sharpness of mind and courage of heart. Her story became inspiration for countless young officers who learned, "Your voice matters, your analysis counts, your courage can change everything." Everyone in the Pentagon now knew Emma Rodriguez's golden rule. When data doesn't match assumptions, question assumptions, not data. This principle was carved into institutional wisdom, guiding countless future decisions and preventing untold disasters. That historic day, a fundamental lesson was learned in the Pentagon. Excellence knows no rank, wisdom recognizes no hierarchy, and truth spoken with conviction has the power to move mountains. Emma Rodriguez embodied these principles and proved that sometimes saving the world starts with simply having the courage to speak up when it matters most. Her legacy lives on every time a junior officer stands up in a meeting, every time cultural intelligence prevents disaster, every time someone remembers, a prepared mind combined with a brave heart can literally change the course of history. This lesson will never be forgotten in the Pentagon, and Emma Rodriguez's name will forever be associated with courage, intelligence, and unwavering commitment to truth that day proved. Heroes don't always wear medals. Sometimes they just speak up at exactly the right moment.